Ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed speakers, our partners, from the ISA representatives, and our valued participants. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to all of you. It is my true joy and privilege to invite you to this important and a timely webinar on operational technology, cybersecurity, as we traverse the ever-changing technological landscape. The intersection of IT and OT becomes increasingly important, and the security of our operational system is critical. I am Seema Shukla, Executive Director of TIC Council India, your moderator for today's discussions. It is my pleasure to lead you through a series of thought-provoking presentations, conversations, and idea exchanges that will definitely expand our awareness on the standard and the challenges and potential in the field of OT cybersecurity. I would like to invite Mr. John Ramesh to deliver the inaugural address on behalf of Tech Council India. Mr. Ramesh is a country manager of TUV Rhineland LLC, Oman, and regional business field manager of IO7 cybersecurity and functional safety in the India, Middle East, and Asia region. He is a postgraduate in information system and a dynamic leader with proven track records in the quality and industrial and functional safety and cybersecurity of TUV Rhineland in the India and Middle East region. He's an active member of Technical Reference Committee for Development of Medical Device Security in Singapore. He has driven various cybersecurity initiatives and worked in various sectors, industries, including oil and gas, IT, ITS, infrastructure, manufacturing, etc. He is also a lead auditor on various management systems, 9,000, 27,001, 22,301, 20,000, and Six Sigma Green Belt, CMMI, SVC, Dev, ITSM, ITIL. So a lot of, feathers in his cap. He's also an ethical hacker by EC Council. He's actually worked in the medical device security area. So without taking much time, I'll hand over the floor to Mr. John Ramesh to set the context of this webinar for us. Over to you, Mr. Ramesh.
Thank you, Seema. It was always a pleasure to be part of such webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. As Seema given such a large profile background, thank you, Seema, for that. However, let's get into the point of discussion today. As you all understand, it is important in today's world. We are understanding more about what's happening within the country or outside the country. And before me going into the details, I'd like to give you a little background about what TIC Council, as most of you are aware, but still it is our emphasis to inform you that TIC Council is a global association organization. Its representation over 100 international third-party testing, inspection, certification organization, right? Now, TIC Council is a model where we all many certification or testing body gets to work together, and it is an industry where it engages government and some of the key stakeholders to ensure and provide an effective solution to protect the public and support the innovation and facilitate trade. Now, as TIC Council members, our intention, our objective is to ensure that we work together, bring in best practices to ensure the safety, quality, health and ethics and sustainabilities are paramount important. Having said that, TIC Council, it's a strategic priority for us to be aligned with the digitalization, international trade, and product safety and compliance. Having said, what I wanted to set the context here, most of who have joined the session, it is very clear that worldwide, I'll just want to give you a couple of data point, and I wanted to bring this context of why we are doing this first and foremost. Today, couple of data points which I want to say. Worldwide, many many regulators in the world have created certain regulations pertaining to cybersecurity. Whether it is, let's talk right from the US market onwards, right? I know we have NERC for the utility sector, or you look into some of the Australian regulators where they have a critical infrastructure program, or you look into anything in the Middle East, whether it's Saudi, Oman, Qatar, or UAE, you have a lot of regulators pertaining to creating an operational technology and the cybersecurity regulators. Now, in India, we have national critical infrastructure, which is also protecting predominantly on the protection law, and also the electricity authority, which has a cybersecurity and power sector. What does it say? We need to understand that it is predominantly gives one direction, that we're all moving into one direction to ensure we protect, we ensure that we are not vulnerable to the external world. Having talking about vulnerable, let me give you a couple of data. Over the last 25 years, in the initial days in late 80s, we were identified around 20,000 vulnerabilities worldwide being identified. But if I ask this question to the audience, what is the current number? It has increased in the last 25 years exponentially. Close to about 300,000 vulnerabilities have been identified. What does it say? It says that we are vulnerable and we got to protect. These regulators or these authorities who are coming forward to ensure and put the regulation in place, only then we are going to make this compliances ineffective. Now, close to 58% of this vulnerability is coming from manufacturing. Please understand that, our OT is predominantly critical infrastructure on the manufacturing side, and followed by energy and oil, right? So this is something which is very critical for us. As TIC Council, we always been proactively discussing how we should bring in our partners like you, stakeholders, organization, bring in the value to provide such kind of education, such kind of information where we share it to everyone, where it would add a complete important ingredient for our daily practice. So that is our intention, and we continue to do it. And today we've started this initiative, and you would see our friends from Rahul, Naveen, and others presenting will enrich each and every one of you and will bring in a value. And our intention is to see how we could bring value and uplift your ideas and bring in some supportive character. Now, with that note, I wanted to, as you all, I am going to be part of this session to support, to ensure that we all learn, and every day is a learning for us, and we learn from each and everything, and then see how we could effectively implement in our day-to-day work. With this, thank you so much, Seema. I think it was always a pleasure to be part of the council and to have this inaugural speech. And I continue to stay so that we help and then we support everyone. Thank you, Seema.
Thank you, Mr. John Ramesh, for setting the context of the webinar and highlighting the vulnerabilities, the exponential increase in the vulnerabilities. So before I invite Dr. Ashish Manchanda for his special address, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our partners ISA in this webinar. And Dr. Ashish Manchanda here represents the ISA Delhi chapter, Delhi section, and Dr. Ashish is a seasoned professional and has more than 30 years of experience in the Indian industry and have played an active and hand-on role in the automation industry's various domains, including machine, plant, and building, process and power electronics, keeping pace with the changes in the technology, and have taken several initiatives to understand and apply and create value propositions for the industry stakeholders. He's pioneered in control and instrumentation domain and with specialization in interfacing, switching, controlling, protection, monitoring, and IIoT technology. He has been associated with several industry association, government bodies like CII, BIS, TEC, in their committees in developing the and sharing the technical know-how. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Ashish Manchanda for his presentation and discussion. So,
Thank you, Seemaji. Thank you, Mr. John, because I'm on the first time on this HIP Council organized event. So I can also say that on behalf of ISA, we are quite similar in terms or complementary in terms of the functionality and the value proposition for all the stalwarts or the professionals who are engaged in cybersecurity and otherwise overall industry automation. So I don't want to take too much of a time because I've been given some limited time. So I want to quickly take you through a brief presentation on what ISA is all about and what ISA can do or what ISA has been doing. So this presentation will take you through the various facets of ISA, and which is the International Society of Automation based out of headquarters out of US, and we have the Indian charter, and I'll share with you some more details so that in the future, in case you need any support from us or you want to associate with the ISA, you are most welcome. So I just share quickly the screen and for the so I hope the screen is visible to all of us.
no.
No, not yet. Oh. Is it
Yes, we
now?
can.
Great.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Very quickly, the vision, as you can see, is that we want to create a better world, and how is we are going to share the better world, sharing the knowledge. And ISA has a lot of tools which empower you for getting engaged into various automation domains. Of course, becoming member of ISA is the thing that we want from every one of us that wants to become a member and have an access to the trainings, the certifications, the possibility of participating in the events, and also in terms of access to standards and many other things, including publication, etc. So these are the things that you can see from the perspective of ISA in general. And to be very specific, ISA has now globally almost close to 14 members. The slide is a little old, and so I'm sure we have some more increase. And Asia Pacific is the region where India belongs to, apart from other countries, Australia, Taiwan, Malaysia, Japan, and so on, and Korea. So India has many sections. One of the section is ISADD section, to which we are engaged, and we are quite active in terms of our role play in organizing events with respect to cybersecurity, because we did one last year in 2022, and now also we did in 2023. So two special full day events we have conducted for OT cybersecurity, and this has been quite successful, and we always look forward to have you on board for this meeting. We'll announce very soon the next events. And to take you further about knowledge sharing platform of ISA, what I can say is that we have already good number of experts who have been instrumental in contributing to development standards. And we are scattered all over the world, except to 40 countries and close to 3,500 volunteers who have been engaged in directing and developing the standards, including the standard IEC 62443, which has been together done with the ISA. And in terms of the training contents of ISA, we are quite flexible with respect to the needs of the industry. We are also giving certification trainings wherein the industry experts then are sure that if somebody is certified, say they have been taught by experts and they are hands-on with respect to the theory as well as practice. That's how the training modules of ISA are, and they are also quite accredited with various private and government sectors in terms of the value. Also, if you are there with respect to the training contents of ISA, then you can get a lot of different topics covered with the training aspects, starting from cybersecurity, process automation. I will go through some more details in the upcoming slides. even typical courses like SCADA system integration, and we arrange also boot camps with respect to automation engineering, etc. Many such things are there. And in terms of digital transformation, we have also some very specific focused training courses introduced by ISA globally, and this is where we feel that the automation industry professionals can gain a lot if they want to train themselves or their manpower under them, so that we can have not only the individuals but also the employers getting the benefit out of these ISA training credentials. So this really gives a good confidence to the employers that the individuals that are trained by ISA are well versed with the subject and they can really create value. And specifically, we do some very, I can say, qualified and also very popular certification programs like the CAP, that is the Certified Automation Professional. Details are available on the website, so I'm not going to take you through that, but also for the technicians. So various subparts are there for 3 different levels of technicians who can then gain the qualification from based on ISA. So as you can see on the slide that we also have cybersecurity different levels. There are 4 certificates which are of different levels, going up to the expert level where you can be trained on cybersecurity things. And the new things we have added is project management, and also soon we are going to have a fire and gas certification course as well. So this CAP associate job skill oriented training for automation professionals is something which we have added in ISA Delhi section also, and various other sections in India. So in case you need to have some more information, what we can say is that lot of impact ISA has created on the overall costs aspects of project management in 2-hour trainings for the professionals who have gone through that and the employers. And in terms of the cybersecurity, I think Mr. John also mentioned. So this is something to complement that we have so many challenges with respect to the intrusions in the domain of cybersecurity, and this far widespread. This is just a small data which has been collected by Fortinet, and so I'm just showing you on my screen that there are no sectors, almost every sector is infected by cyber. And this is where ISA together with IEC have been create or is still creating the upgradation standard. We are very consistent in contributing towards the cybersecurity needs of the industry and working in collaboration. And we are, kind of, I would say, growing numbers of professionals who are getting involved with our cybersecurity options, which ISA will provide. And we also have some books. I just wanted to show you that how you can get a competency on the knowledge that one should have as an automation professional, and so on and so forth. And this is important. This slide, lastly, that ISA also has a consortia. It's in collaboration with various other organizations which are dedicating to the cybersecurity facet. And this is like the R&D organizations like Logic. The similar organization is ISA Global Cybersecurity Alliance, where we try to bridge the gap between the standards which are there, so that we can make the standards more available and more interpretable with and to be adopted easily. That's how we want to create that kind of a culture. To ISA Secure, there's another platform which helps the suppliers, the manufacturers, and the developers to get the certification for their products and systems. Similarly, ICS for ICS, that's an incident command system for industrial control system. This is a body which is organizing and is looking into the kind of response that we have to give to the critical infrastructure, cybersecurity threats. And also with respect to wireless, because wireless is these days also a part of now cybersecurity. So ISA is also having that consortium with ISA, wireless standard organization. Similarly, with respect to ISA Secure, one extra slide I just want to keep you updated that we have the ISA Secure, that means the accreditation facility through ISA for devices, systems, for integrators, for even process suppliers, licenses, etc. And these are the current offerings that we are giving, and we are going to increase that offering as well in the future. Very quick topic about the IECS for ICF. I think this is quite popular now. A lot of professionals who are the CISOs or who are the chief professionals in any organization related to cybersecurity, they are now becoming consortium as well. And lastly, before I close, I would say that ISA is actually creating thought leadership, because those members who are involved with ISA activities are actually giving back to society, are giving back in terms of contents, events, publications, and many things, and not just one particular domain of industry. So if we are members of ISA, then we are actually having access to so many different industry segments, technology and challenges, and the aspects of various things with respect to process automation, cybersecurity, factory automation, machine automation, so many things. So ISA is covering almost the entire gamut of anybody who would like to, any professional who would like to know anything about the various industrial domains. ISA is there. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you very much. So
it's on the right.
I would like to now
You can continue.
stop here. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ashish, for taking us through the ISA initiatives. And I'll say the active participant is a key to the success of this webinar. So please feel free to engage with our speakers, ask questions, share your insights, use the chat box for doing this. We'll be happy to take your questions once the presentations are started, the co-presentation started. So without taking any more time, I would request Mr. Rahul Gupta, will be speaking on the cybersecurity and industrial automation, ISA 6244341 certification. Mr. Gupta holds a degree in electronics engineering and a postgraduate in operations management. He has more than 33 years of experience in design, engineering, installation, commissioning of industrial automation and control, safety critical control system operations, integration with safety and cybersecurity resources. More than 350 global projects, worked with different Fortune 500 companies, and lot on the areas of the functional safety expert, industrial cybersecurity specialist, ULCCSX certified cybersecurity expert. So lot of feathers to his cap. So I will just hand it over the floor to Mr. Rahul Gupta. Since we have already lost a bit of time, so I'll request if you can wrap up in 25 minutes or maximum 30 minutes. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Rahul. You can put your slide presentation in the slideshow form.
Yeah, just a minute. Can you see the video? No.
I can't see you. No, but I can see the presentation.
Presentation, yeah.
Yeah, video is not enabled. Rahul, video is not enabled, but presentation is active. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a minute. Actually, I am having some issue here. Just a minute.
Do you want?
Yeah, just a minute. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You can see me, yeah, correct?
Yes, we can see you. We can see the presentation also.
Yeah, just a minute.
Yes.
Just switching over the. Okay, good. All good. You can see my presentation screen, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So thank you everyone for participating in this, and thank you Seema for introduction. So today I will be covering introduction for IEC 62443-4-1, which is actually related to secure product development lifecycle requirements. In this presentation, I will try to give a overall overview And most importantly, as in the opening speech mentioned, like what are the certification benefits? And just for the interest of all the audience, there is still, I would say, a bit of misalignment in ISA IEC 62443-4-1. The title, we use Secure Product Development Lifecycle, but it is replaced by SDL. So sometimes people get confused SDLC and SDL. So in my conversation, I will be using the term SDL. Yeah. So thank you. Okay, my introduction is already given, and so I don't want to spend too much time, but just briefly, I am lead principal advisor for UL Solutions. I am based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and my key responsibilities is technical lead and global subject matter experts of cyber programs, and precisely the IEC 62443 standard for industrial cybersecurity. And in my current role, actually, I'm responsible as a practice lead and the program owner, including the program owner for the training program we are running on 62443. Rest of the introduction is anyway given by Seema. Just to add, I am with UL Solution for last 3 years. I am working in industry for last 33 years, which and just to add, before joining UL, I have worked with organizations like Honeywell International, Worley Parsons, Technip, and I started my career in India with Engineers India Limited. So I worked there for 11 years. Yeah. So those who are not familiar with UL Solutions, so just a brief introduction. By utilizing our vast security resources to serve our customers, market leadership of UL Solution in cybersecurity is achieved. And as a certification body, we speak knowledgeably about security by design, software development, hardware development, and competencies in writing code. And our organization has a dedicated security division with more than 500 cybersecurity experts and 20 years of experience in this space. And this means that our customers can take advantage of our broad, in-depth experience as it pertains to security, be it in cryptography, infrastructure, authentication, all adapted to the industry needs, or what we call in today's word, Industry 4.0. To begin this webinar topic on 4-1, this is overview of ISA IEC 62443 series of standard. So when approaching 62443 for the first time, it is helpful to understand the structure of these standards and how the hierarchy defines the responsibility for maintaining resilience of ISCS cybersecurity. A list of all the parts in the ISA IEC 62443 series published under the general title Security for Industrial Automation and Control System, and can be found on ISA and IEC website. The standards are grouped into 4 categories. Yeah, and these categories are like general, policy, systems, and component. And these are all denoted by suffix -1, -2, -3, and -4. So general standard provides an overview of the ISA IEC 62443 security process and introduce concepts which are found throughout the series of the standards. They form the foundation for the other categories. The policies and procedures standard provide guidance on creating and maintaining a secure system, including security policies and risk management. The system standard, means Series 3, provide guidance on the designing and implementing a secure ISCS, including cybersecurity technologies and mitigation methods. The last one is Series 4. The component standard describe the development lifecycle requirements and technical functionality levels for ISCS component. Okay, so we have looked at the roles defined within the standard, and we have looked at the categories, how they are mapped. 62443 standard series guide, it guides actually assets owners, system integrator, and product manufacturers in establishing robust cybersecurity. So series 2 assist assets owner in developing security policies and ensuring secure systems through integrators. Series 3 helps integrator translate owner requirement into secure designs, verifying product security from manufacturers. And Series 4 outlines product design objectives for manufacturers. So all standards within the ISA IEC 62443 series are important. And I would like to highlight this standard has been recently designated as horizontal standard. What does this mean? It means that they are proven to be applicable to the wide range of the industries. So inside the 62443, there are two substandards with component and product related consideration and requirements. So requirement, the first one is requirements for processes for product development are gathered under 4-1, and requirements about product security are part of 4-2. So in ISA IEC 62443 series of standard, we do not speak about products, but most often about components. But for easy reading, you can use those terms synonymously, like component, products, or device. Because if you see a 4-2 title, it's about security development lifecycle for products. But 4-2 title is security requirements for components. So in this presentation, I will be using this term interchangeably, components, products, or devices here. So in this part of the webinar, I am covering 4-1, and the next session is by my colleague, from my colleague is on 4-2. So 4-1 describes requirement for a security development lifecycle and other related concept, whereas 4-2 is more dealing with the components or device or and it specifies the security requirements. And then there are 4 security requirement SL1 to SL4. So they will be discussed in the next presentation. So cyber security should be priority from the outset and not an afterthought. So considering this, software development and its security goes hand in hand if the goal is to have a secure development lifecycle. The main benefits of adopting a secure development lifecycle are: it makes security a continuous concern, including all stakeholders in the security consideration. It helps detect flaws early in the development process, reducing business risk for the organization. And most importantly, it reduces cost by detecting and resolving issues early in the life cycle. So good example is like in mechanical engineering, all engineer knows with every further steps in the products from design to operation, cost to correct an error increase by the factor of 10 to the power of 1, 2, 3, 4, it can go to any magnitude. Like if a brake in a car is detected as dangerous, this could lead to a recall of millions of cars. And as it happened already more than once, the same principle applies to the software. So some examples from software, like there are studies done, and it has been found that 75% of the vulnerabilities are application related. And over 70% of the security vulnerabilities exist at the application layer, not at the network layer. And and also we have seen in the industry, the cost of fixing a bug in the field is, let's say, 30,000 versus 5,000 during the coding. So it makes the difference. If you identify the vulnerability in the early stage, the cost of implementation is much, much lower than if that is identified in the later stage of the life cycle. So there are many benefits of removing the vulnerability in earlier stage. From the business perspective, I would like to emphasize more on that part and explain one more reason why it is important for all the stakeholders, not only the product manufacturers, but also system integrator and assets owner as well. If you are minimizing your product vulnerabilities in early stage itself, you are directly helping end users or assets owner with the trouble they normally get from the vulnerability management. And this is a known headache for the assets owner, since they would have many different vendors in their control system architecture. And to find the vulnerabilities and patching accordingly is not a straightforward job, and it is a whole different topic. Also, for OT systems, it is very important to have security objectives priority set very clearly. IT system, you may often hear like CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. In IACS environment or OT environment, general priority of these objectives is often different, and security in these systems is primarily concerned with maintaining the availability of all the system components. So when working on the scope of the SDL, a development team should focus on deliverables such as security milestones, required certifications, risk assessment, key security resources, and required third-party resources. So having the SDL ultimately establish the trust between the product manufacturers and its customers, and compliance with ISA IEC 62443 is instrumental in establishing that trust. Now, the next thing is, who are the typical applicant for 4-1? So different stakeholders have different obligations to achieve resilient system in operations. 62443 4-1 focuses on the manufacturer's responsibilities, such as vulnerabilities in firmware, backend, such as on-premises servers, cloud services, and any kind of software developers. The later group also includes developers for software described hardware like field programmable gate arrays. Here. In 62443, particularly for Series 4, there are certain constraints. So for any kind of security controls implementation, there are limitations. In trivial words, it does not make sense to implement security controls to an extent that everything is absolutely secure and the operation is just not possible anymore. Yeah. So this is where the and such a general statement applies to the IT. In the OT, we are much more specific, and this is implemented in 62443 standard and labeled as common component security constraint. In 4-2, we will come back to this requirement in next presentation. There are three aspects are mentioned here. Any product certification under 62443 requires a process certification, which is about the secure product development lifecycle. And there is a mandatory reference requirement to a 4-1 certificate relevant to that product to issue a 4-2 certification. So if references are not present for 4-1, the product 4-2 certificate cannot be issued. So in making a system resilient, we need to consider and accept that there are legacy products, used systems, which have not been designed following a secure product development lifecycle in the past. 62443 allow us retroactively to analyze software, for instance, component already in the field in operation, and to certify them. Now, a little bit of detailed explanation of 4-1. Cybersecurity is a journey and not a destination. Yeah. So cybersecurity is not about the absence of threat, but also the presence of defenses. A secure development lifecycle can greatly increase the overall security effectiveness of a device. A product which offers security functionality is not necessarily a secure product. So 4-1 standard is the foundation on which device security is built. It defines security processes from a product conceptual stage through development and maintenance right through until the end of its lifetime. 62443 standard, substandard 4-1 carries the title Secure Product Development Lifecycle Requirements, which is one of the two substandard for product or component as explained earlier. 4-1 simple standout, simply it contains the structure for facilitating the implication of its top layer. It's called practices. And in 4-1, we have 8 of those practices. The next level down, you will find the requirements. So there are totally the requirements vary between 5 to 13 depending on the practices. So each practice has up to 5 to 13 different requirements. Even this is not the lowest level. There are sub requirements as well, dependent on the requirement up to 13. As you see, there are quite a lot of requirements and sub requirements and so forth. And there is a need to follow the structure to prevent that in evaluation or certification, nothing would be overlooked. So we speak here about the fulfillment of the requirement, which is of the importance for certification. In other words, even the certificate, a requirement is confirmed as being fulfilled, it means all sub requirements are fulfilled, otherwise not. So all requirements under the roof of 8 practices follow the same syntax, at least for the first 6 words, which are a process should be employed for. So it's all about there should be a process should be employed for. And just to add, explaining SDL in more detail, I take a good example. It's like cooking a delicious meal. So SDL in 62443-4-1 involves careful planning and selecting ingredients, means security measures here. So following a step-by-step process means development stages and ensuring that the final dish IACS component is delicious and safe to consume. So for example, if you add an egg to a dish after finishing cooking, which you need to add at the beginning of the cooking, you may spoil the dish. So in the same way, SDL helps to add security measures at the right stage of the product development. This is 4-1 substandard structure. As I mentioned earlier, there are 8 practices, and these practice and the labeling of each practices are self-explaining. Like security management means SM, except for practice 6, which is related to management of security related issues. But actually, this has been abbreviated as DM, means defect management here. So that's the only difference. And when we go in the detail, each practices have different requirements explained in the standard. In 4-1, I am picking one key concept, which is actually maturity level. So when it comes to operation, organization and people, the measurement of level of maturity in terms of capability, 4-1 has adopted a modified version of CMMI. And maturity levels provide more details on how thoroughly a supplier has met these requirements. Therefore, these levels can be used by the system integrator and assets owner to assess the level of rigor used to develop the products. The maturity model provides a method which describes the level to which a manufacturer has put the secure development lifecycle requirement into practice. These levels are known as maturity levels. And there are total 4 maturity levels. Maturity level 1 indicates no compliance, means product suppliers typically perform product development in an ad hoc manner and often undocumented. So it's like cooking a dish by instinct without following a recipe book. If the dish you cook is not good, you try to adjust the taste by adding more condiments. At this level, there is a lot of variation in the output you can expect. Maturity level 2 indicates that a manufacturer has a compliance procedure, but not all of them are being used during a specific product development or a project level. However, the manufacturer employees are trained and have expertise in the processes. This is typically a transition phase when the procedures have not yet been fully put into place. This is like working in a restaurant chain where each location has its own recipe book and the recipe book is followed very well. Maturity level 3 indicates that a manufacturer has developed and documented at least one product in accordance with the secure development processes at organization level. So this is similar to a restaurant where recipes, packaging, and even delivery processes are documented, followed, and monitored very well. And last level is maturity level 4. The highest level indicates that the manufacturers has implemented processes of document documented self-regulation and continuous improvement by audits. Yeah. Now, 4-1 certification importance and why third-party certification. So users observed a noticeable enhancement in OT cybersecurity when adhering to ISA IEC 62443 standard during the SDL. In cybersecurity, early detection of potential threats is essential for system integrity, and it's like identifying an iceberg before it hits the Titanic. So certification of the most often format of conformity assessment. On top of the standard, certification schemes are needed. Security level and maturity level allow the issuance of quantitative statement about security capabilities, for instance, a component or an organization such as a development site. Yeah? So whether buying a complete system or some individual components, you can't leave security to chance. Certification means that a trusted independent third party will attest that the system or component you own complies with the requirement defined in 62443 standard. Certifications of system or component is not defined in the standard. Yeah? So many companies need to gain expertise for in-depth technical investigation. Many other require evidence of compliance to be attested by the third party. As a result, several highly reputable certification agencies or certification bodies have established ISA IEC 62443 certification schemes. So on the screen, you can see primarily there are uh, there are there are three possibilities. One is IEC CP scheme of certification. Then under ISA, Mr. Manchanda has already shown, like there is a ISA secure program, and these are the two primary scheme. But many of the certification bodies have their proprietary schemes to certify the product based on 62443. The certification schemes, for example, include an analysis of a product security level and the maturity level of the processes used to create that product. Independent third-party certification have many advantages and standouts. Like firstly, compliance is assured by a trusted third party. Compliance will also be comprehensive in covering all the functionalities in the standard. Secondly, certification agencies will only certify devices if they have been developed following the secure development lifecycle standard. Thirdly, is unbiased and creating trust, ensuring validation of the claims, comprehensive assessment of the compliance with 62443 standard. And some certifications are recognized internationally, and so easier for global companies to do the business. So these are the key benefits. And if we go further detail, the benefits of certifications are definitely better cybersecurity measures can lead to reduced instances of cyber attack. Therefore, minimizing operational downtime, increased productivity and efficiency due to fewer downtime events, lower cost associated with the cyber attacks such as incident response and remediations. Certification processes promotes a culture of continuous improvement in the cybersecurity practice. Also, it improved reputation and customer trust. And adhering to 62443 standard is often a requirement in many industries, particularly those involving critical infrastructure through regulations here. So, and then improved risk mitigation as certification helps in identifying and assessing and mitigating cybersecurity risk in industrial environment. Process of certification includes training of employees, which enhance the overall cybersecurity awareness within the organization. So training on 62443 equips manufacturer, system integrator, and assets owner with a deeper understanding of industrial cybersecurity best practices. They learn about security risk assessment, security design principle, secure coding practices, and all. And most importantly, this knowledge enables them to develop and integrate secure products and system from the early stages of the development. And 62443 is an international standard. Its certification is recognized and respected worldwide. I'm not going to read out this slide. And these are the benefits for the plant owner of 62443. So because as we see, there are the three key stakeholders in ISCS lifecycle. So assets owner owns the final risk related to cybersecurity. So these are the key benefits for for the assets owner for having 62443 certification. The next question comes like someone has to start a journey. So this is a slide where we have shown like as a certification body, UL can help in the complete life cycle for all the stakeholders like product manufacturers, system integrator, and assets owner. We do provide services on risk assessment, evaluations, audit, and of course certification. And starting from early stages in the life cycle of product design, then verification, validation, commissioning, maintenance, and until the end of the life of the product. Most importantly is market enablement. So this is the summary. So this market enablement means, as in the introductory talk, there was some touch points on regulations. So this space is evolving. A lot of new regulations are coming, and many companies are struggling. What are the regulations applicable for their businesses? So we do help our customers by providing market enablement services. We do run several trainings and workshops for assets owners, system integrator, product manufacturers. Most importantly, doing the gap analysis. Like as we said, the certification process does require, are you really ready for the certificate? So where do you stand today? We can perform the gap analysis against the standards requirement and identify those gaps and which can help you in like fixing those gaps and be ready for the certification. And of course, as a certification body, UL solutions can perform testing and certification on various 62443 standard series. Yeah. With this, I think considering a request to wrap up in the time, so I have finished my presentation and I stop here and back to you, Seema. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahul, for your insightful presentation about the standard, the series of ISA IEC 62443 and also on the 6244341. I will request the participants, in case they have some questions, please post in the chat box. We can take the questions at the end of the session because our speakers are with us and they'll be able to, they'll be happy to answer your questions. Now, I would like to introduce Mr. Naveen Menon, who is the Service Delivery Manager at TUV Rhineland, and he'll be speaking on navigating the cybersecurity risk, ISA IEC 6244342 certification. Mr. Menon has around 20 years of experience in automation, control system, industrial cybersecurity, and has worked with the industrial gases, manufacturing, utility, oil and gas industry. He's very strong in cybersecurity domain, expert in control system, ICS security assessment, vulnerability assessments, and process audits. He has implemented the SCADA and control system, cybersecurity system, management system at different locations, around 24 locations globally, and had worked with Praxair Corporation. So, and several audits, risk analysis. He's an expert in this area and in the SCADA system. So over to you, Mr. Menon. The floor is yours now. Thank you.
Naveen, we can't hear you. Naveen?
Hello, all. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you all, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this presentation. It's privilege to speak after such great presentations. You get half of your work is already done, so you can cut the clutter and get straight into the topics, right? So thank you, Seema. Thank you, Mr. Rahul, Abhishek, John, for the wonderful sessions earlier. The topic today, which I'll be discussing, is on 62443-4-2. But as we know, ISA is more a set of standards which are supposed to be looked in as a whole rather than as in separate. So while each standard has its own context and its own set of nuances and all set of requirements, but they work together, and without the context of the other, they don't work well as such. So understanding all these to get in its entirety, it's very important to understand each of them separately as well, right? So as explained previously by Mr. Rahul, we have a four set of different compartments, like so as to say. So we have the general, we have the requirements for asset owners and operators, we have requirements for system integrators, and we have requirements for components and product manufacturers. Now, 4-2 comes under the fourth horizontal, which is of the component and manufacturers, right? So the 4-1 gives the life cycle requirements, as already explained by Mr. Rahul. 4-2 provides the technical security requirements. Okay, now technical security requirements come in from 3-3, which provides the control system security requirements and security assurances level. Now they mention the security levels, which comes as a result of 3-2 standard, which provides for the zone and conduits and risk assessment and so on and so forth. And that requirements comes in from 2-1 as a part of the entire cybersecurity management system, and the process of cybersecurity management system. So understanding the flow of this how this works is very important, because as in the starting, John mentioned that the amount of vulnerabilities that are being identified currently are 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 tremendous, are exponential from what we used to have earlier, and the number of weaponized exploits have also increased tremendously. So then what does that mean? Does that mean we keep on patching all the time? Can we patch the OT cybersecurity systems all the time? Difficult, practically difficult to do. Keep on patching on a regular basis. Continual patching is very difficult in an OT system. Sometimes we still have legacy systems in place. Sometimes we have systems, but they are running. The availability is very important. We will not be in a position to patch it, or will not be in a position to shut down the system to do a patching or do remedial controls on them. It becomes difficult. So then how do we do? Then the answer goes into these standards, which talks about people, process, technology, controls for the people, controls for the process, and controls for the technology. Now, how do we build all that together is through defense in depth. So now all these standards work together to form a defense in depth architecture for you. So 4-2 will give you different controls which form under different categories, say foundational requirements for identity access management, use control, for data confidentiality, for system integrity. So they add layers and layers and layers, and once you have those layers, then you are in a good shape to manage, right? So that's the whole concept of this, right? So now we looked at, in the previous slide, we looked at all the different standards that we had. Now just putting that into context, we have the bottom here, the product developer and system integrator. They develop control systems components, right? And the type of components which are segregated in the IC/ISA 62443 are embedded devices, network devices, host devices, and software applications. Now, for all these standards, what are the typical kind of standards which are applicable? 3-3, 4-1, 4-2. 4-1 was as explained by Rahul already. So we have 4-1, which provides the life cycle requirements, and we have 4-2, which provides the technical requirements for the components itself, right? Now all these components build into the automation solutions, right? And there 3-3 is again applicable on them. and then it becomes the control system, which is taken over and operated by the asset owner, and so on. So there you have 2-1, which comes in to set up policy, procedure, processes in place to manage this entire thing, right? So their risk assessment is done through the use of 3-2. Now, why is that risk assessment important? Because how when you want to get a product certified to a particular level, say SL1, SL2, SL3, SL4 security level, how either you want to build a product for a particular level, or a vendor asks, or say asset owner asks, or a service provider asks, I want a product which is certified for SL2 or SL3. Why? Because that is what the requirement for my control system is. So if I want to build a control system which has certain components, it needs to be, say, a particular level for it to work effectively, or to mitigate the risk, or mitigate the risk, and so on. So where do we get that from? So that comes from the risk assessment, right? So that comes from the risk assessment. So how is it done, right? So let's look at it at a very high level. I'll not spend a lot of time on this, but just a fun exercise, what you can see. So basic idea: no threat, no risk, right? No vulnerability, no risk. So that's the basic. But where there's, suppose there's a little bit of threat and a little bit of vulnerability, then how do you manage? Then the rating comes into place, right? So you do have to do the risk rating. Risk rating is based on impact and likelihood, right? So now, is it the same? Say, suppose it's a simple example: a man wants to cross the road, and there is a boy. There is basically no threat from the boy, right? And the man, whether he has no protection on, but the boy is not a threat, so there is no risk. Now, suppose there is a layman out there on the road. Now, this layman, he does not have an intention to harm this guy, right? He does not has any intention to harm my vulnerable man. Neither has he any training in harming anyone, right? Nor does he have the motivation or the money, or does he need anything from him to do that. So what kind of a risk is there here? So the impact, if this fellow without any training tries to attack him, impact is less, likelihood is also very less, right? Now, so say the same man comes with a gun, right? Now the same man comes with a gun. Now it's not the same situation. Maybe he does not have the training, maybe he does not have the experience or the intention, but he has a resource. So he has some kind of extra resource with him, and if misfired also, the impact of this attack can be much higher, right? So there's a change in the rating of that risk. Now, say, suppose in the same situation, we harden this man a bit, and the layman with the gun comes in now. So there, he has got the bulletproof glass on him, which has some holes. So now the layman with the gun, he's trying to shoot this guy, right? So what happens is that he may hit, he may miss. So the likelihood is less, right? And the impact will remain the same, but the likelihood is changing. So there's a better chance that he does not get hurt. So let's change him with a goon now. Now the goon has motivation, has intent, has received training on using these, and has better resources, and can harm this man, has a better likelihood of exploiting this hole in his bulletproof bubble, and targeting this guy, right? So let's change this to a fewer, uh, different bubbles, a different bulletproof uh, ball with some small holes, lesser vulnerabilities. Now the vulnerabilities are less, he's more hardened, right? And this guy has got better weapons than the other guy. Now the chances of him getting through this is very less, but there is some chance. If he hits on the leg, no issue. If he hits on the head, there's still an issue. So let's replace him with a sniper, right? Now the sniper is trained, heavily armed, heavily resourced, heavily trained. He can shoot from anywhere, and he can find that small hole and he can hit you. So the only way to escape that is to have a fully bulletproof glass without any holes in them. Now, why is this all this? What is the representation of this? So this guy is the biggest threat that you have here, one of the biggest threats. So he is somebody with the highest resources, the highest training, the highest motivation to harm you, something like a nation state, something like a terrorist organization. This guy is somebody who has experience, who has training, but not with a great amount of resources, not with a great amount of skills, right? And then you have the layman with the gun, who's basically your somebody who found a gun on the road, right? So not much, but accidentally something could happen. So why all this? So this represents your SL1, SL2, SL3, and SL4. So that's why this explanation, because this is very important to understand that, right? So now in terms of security, replace those guys, the sniper with this nation state, replace the goons with the hackers and the organizations, replace the layman with your unauthorized employees or disgruntled employees, whatnot. So SL1 is the capability to protect against casual or coincidental violations, right? SL1 is the capability of your system to protect against casual or coincidental violations. So SL2 is the, which is security level 2, is the capability to protect against violations, intentional violations. So the one SL1 was not intentional. SL2 is intentional, like the SL1, the layman with the gun, was unintentional. He would have shot you. He didn't want to shoot you, but he could have shot you, right? Now SL2 here is with intention, right? Intentional, simple means with low resources, generic skills, low motivation. SL3 is to protect against intentional violations using sophisticated means with moderate resources and moderate motivation. And with IACS specific skills, not generic skills, specific skills. And SL4 is something like a nation state with extended resources, IACS specific skills, high motivation and intentional intention. So how do we get that? Like I explained earlier, we need to do use 3-2 to do a risk assessment, separate things into zones and conduits, identify the threats, identify what are the achieved SL, what is the automation solution, for that, identify what is the capability SL of the components which are there in your systems to identify, and that brings us to 4-2. Now 4-2 is relevant. 4-2 relies heavily on 3-3 for its technical controls, right? How? Because all the requirements of 3-3 are used in 4-2. The FR and the SRs are changed to CRs in 4-2. So there are 7 foundational requirements in 3-3. These are the same 7 foundational requirements which are there in 4-2. So what are those defenses, or what are those requirements? You have identification and authentication control. So FR1 is identification and authentication control. What does it do? To identify and authenticate all humans, software processes, and devices. So all. So it's not just humans are identified, it is humans, software processes, and devices before allowing them to access the control system. FR2, once you have identified before allowing them to use, what can they use? So you have those controls now. What can they use? So you have to enforce assigned privileges of an authenticated user's human, whether it's a human, whether it's a software, to perform and requested action on the IACS and monitor the use of these privileges. FR3 is, or foundational requirement 3, is system integrity. So like initially Mr. Rao said, so AIC, availability, integrity, and confidentiality. You need to check, you need to have the system available. Once system is available, the data, the information has to be correct, integral. Its integrity has to be good, and then it has to be confidential. Only people who are authorized to have it should have it. So system integrity. So ensure the integrity of the IACS to prevent unauthorized manipulation. Data confidentiality, to ensure that confidentiality of information on communication channels in the data repositories, and to prevent unauthorized disclosure. So only people who require to have that information get that information. Only systems which require to access that information get that information. Again, in IACS, it's not if there are different zones, each zone has a different security requirement. So suppose if a particular zone falls under a requirement of SL2 and a particular zone falls under requirement of SL4. So when communicating from SL4 to SL2, only certain requirements may be, only certain data may be sent, and vice versa. So there is differentiation in that as well. Restricted data flows, that's what we were talking right now. FR5, restricted data flow, segment the control system via zones and conduits to limit unnecessary flow of data, right? So timely response to events. Now there is an event that has happened, and we need to respond to that event immediately or in a timely manner to ensure that we get back. So here we are talking about, the ability to respond. So are all these applicable to a component level? There is differentiation again there. You may be thinking, okay, timely response to events with a component, is it really applicable? We'll get to that in the next slide when we talk about the components itself, right? So resource availability. So prevent against degradation of essential services. Okay, so if you put it in a summary, we have totally 100 requirements, security requirements and requirement enhancements put together, approximately 100 out of these 7 foundational requirements. So each of these foundational requirements have some, in this case, 13 requirements and requirements enhancements. Now I'll just give 1 or 2 examples because of paucity of time. We don't have, I think we have only another 10 or 15 minutes, 10 minutes, I guess, to go through. So I'll try and minimize as much as possible. Yeah. So if you look at it, so this is foundational requirement 1, which is on identification and authentication control. So how is it split? So first requirement, or this or the security requirement 1.1, is human user identification and authentication. So ability to identify all human users. So that comes under SL1. So SL1 systems which are SL1, SL2, SL3, SL4, all should have that capability to identify human users, right? Then the next requirement is to unique identification and authentication, right? This is a requirement enhancement. I'll just take you through some of this so that you get a hang of how this is falling in place, right? So there is unique identification and authentication. So here you are able to identify, okay, this is the person who was logged in, which is a human, is Naveen. Okay, Naveen has these privileges, right? So you have the ability to identify and authenticate Naveen specifically into the system. So if you are able to do that, your component is able to do that, then you have SL2 capability. So any system with SL2 and above should be able to uniquely identify the user, right? Next requirement, this is a requirement enhancement. Multi-factor authentication for untrusted networks. So whenever there is an untrusted network, which is access coming in from untrusted networks, you should be in a position to do, the system should require a multi-factor authentication, right? So I'm accessing from outside the boundary. If it is coming in, then the system should be in a position to do multi-factor authentication. That makes it at SL3. For all networks, if you're doing multi-factor authentication, whether I'm inside the factory when I'm logging in front of the device or I'm logging it from outside somewhere, if everywhere I'm doing multi-factor authentication, then it is SL4. So security level 4 for prevention from use of highest means of intention, highest means of highest resources availability, highest skilled people availability, highest resource availability. For that, you need to have this kind of capability. So now that's only Now SR 1.2 talks about identifying software processes, and not only human processes, software as human users, software users, process users, device identification, and then uniquely identify that as well. So this is similarly you have for all systems, all foundational requirements. You have these requirements and requirement enhancements, which can categorize them into different these things. Half an hour is a small time for this, so I will not get into that right now. So now 4-2 talks about common controls, which are to all components, and then specific controls, which are related to software applications, embedded devices, host devices, and network devices. So what's software application? Software application is one or more software programs and their dependencies that are used to interface with the process or the control system itself, right? So for example, it could be a configuration software which you are using, excuse me, or it could be historian, right? Something, right? So software applications typically execute on a host device. So these requirements, there are specific requirements for those software applications. Embedded devices like PLCs, IEDs, there are special purpose devices. They are designed to directly monitor or control an industrial protocol, and they have a real-time scheduler, and they may have an attached control panel, may have communication interfaces, so on and so forth. This is what is the definition of an embedded device as per ISA IEC 62443, and common examples are PLCs or IEDs. Host devices, workstations, and so on and so forth. Network devices, we have switches, VPN, terminators, and other systems, right? So we have a lot of these components which are there over here. So again, if you look at it, we checked previously, they were all mentioned as SRs, or security requirements, or system requirements, so on say. And now you have CR, which are component requirements over here in 4-2. There is maybe slight reduction in the number because some of these may not be directly applicable to the particular component, or they may be covered separately as in separate requirements. Like you can see here, software applications have got 2 requirements and 1 requirement enhancement. Embedded devices have 8 requirements and 5 requirement enhancements, and host devices have so on. So I'll just take an example, one example, so that you get an idea of this. So this is for host devices requirements. So what are the requirements for host devices? So you have a requirement of, say, use of physical diagnostic and test interfaces. Now you know that when we use devices, physical diagnostic and test interfaces are very critical for them when we do the manufacturing, so when we do the commissioning as well. But after that, these may not be really required. So you need to be able to protect them from being misused, because they are not supposed to be used in a regular basis. So then you have active monitoring for that purpose. So how to monitor that to prevent it from being used, and so on and so forth. So the requirements, SL levels for each of them, which categorize as a part of that. So these are the requirements as such for each of the network devices, host devices, embedded devices, and software applications. You have separate requirements, and they are categorized into various security levels, and it a component, just to clarify, some may have a doubt. A PLC may not be in a position to have a multi-factor authentication, but the way when this control system is conceived, the system, the HMI which is connecting to this, and there's only way the only way that is to connect to that PLC is that HMI, and that HMI has a multi-factor authentication. Then the overall system could be SL3 or SL3 as per the requirements, whereas the system may be the component may be still be at an SL1 or SL2. So it is possible from that perspective. Already this has been discussed by Mr. Rahul, but I'll just quickly touch upon this, not getting much into this. As he mentioned, must pass the secure development life cycle process assessment, or 4-1 SDLPA, and the artifacts from that are a requirement for component certification. And then you have component assessment and vulnerability identification and testing as a part of this particular activity. So to help you certify to component security assurance, right? Which can certify you to SL1, SL2, SL3, or SL4 for a particular component. So the process is separate, and I think this has already been done by so this is the presentation on 4-2. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions, but since we had only so much time, so we could cover only this, probably we could go in detail in some other forum, each foundational requirement separately, probably. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Menon. It was an amazing presentation. Actually, you have discussed such technical topic in an interesting way, which is with relatable examples. It's a really amazing presentation.
Thank
So
you.
I'm sure the participants will have a lot of thoughts in their mind, a lot of a lot of things to ask, to connect to both of our esteemed speakers who have covered this topic on the standard and has talked about the risk and vulnerabilities, best practices around it. Now it's time that we'll have a look at a case study and understand what the industry says, what the industry perspective is. So to enlighten us on the same, we have Mr. Somnath Kundu, who is the DGM, Deputy General Manager and alternate CISO at NTPC Limited. So for the interest of all the participants, NTPC is a government public sector enterprises for the National Thermal Power Corporation. He has more than 20 years of experience in the OTA, cybersecurity, risk management, ZTNA, SaaS, enterprise architect, incident handling analysis, digital transformation, handling the legacy systems in a safe and a protected posture, infrastructure, policy making, techno-commercial dealing, team building, and leadership domains. He has done several training and awareness program and worked in the cybersecurity and infrastructure consulting solutions, enterprise integration strategy, digital and enterprise architect, and several other consulting projects on the OT systems and critical information infrastructure. So there's a lot more about Mr. Kundu, but in the interest of time, I'll say he's the right person to talk about this topic, to present the case study and the industrial experience on the cybersecurity. So over to you, Mr. Kundu.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, TIC Council, for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to speak in this forum. So, after two very subjective analysis, detailed deep dive analysis into the two parts of the standard 4-1 and 4-2 on the security components. So, my slides are more of like less informative, so to say. It's not information heavy, but at the same point of time, I would like to touch upon a few punch points, maybe through which we can have a secured real life large scale organizational operational technology. Before I start, and since we are talking in detail about the purely operational technology standard, so as was rightly put through by Rahul ji in the earlier presentation, so for an operational technology security administrator, designer, or an implementer or an engineer, so to say, unlike an IT environment, the availability part is of utmost importance. And along with the availability, another very important aspect that comes is the health, safety, and environment. So the first thing is that the automation should be smooth without any failure. It should be fault tolerant, and at the same point of time, it should run with utmost safety, keeping in mind the health and the environment aspect of the process, the organization, and the people, be it within the organization or in the geographical vicinity of that organization. But while talking about availability and health safety concerns, the main thing that is different with respect to an information technology security posture is the non-acceptance of any time delay. So delay is not at all acceptable in case of an operational technology, and any kind of emergency response is absolutely critical, because any kind of HSE impact can cause loss of life, equipment, or the product itself. Not only that, the operational technologies since the time of inception predominantly work on proprietary protocols, and they are more OEM dependent, unlike the IT environment, where we still have a certain bit of open protocol or the openness, so to say. And in case of an operational technology, unlike an IT environment where we can go for a reboot or we can go for change of a device, here the situation is not so. So even if there is a detrimental decrease in the health of a certain device, we still need to work with that device if there is no redundancy available for that device as a counterpart. And that is where the fault tolerant concept also comes. And in most of these cases, the operational technology would involve use of embedded OS, and thereby the total process, as was categorically summarized by Naveen also, that the upgrade, the patching, and all those processes becomes complex because they become OEM dependent, and validation becomes important. Now, in a real life case, actually what we are dealing with in an organization. So going by the books of the standard is a different thing. But when the time comes to actually implement that standard, we are at present dealt with, or we face a plethora of different cyber physical systems. Now, these cyber physical systems are definitely diverse with multiple makes, and each make has its uh, own kind of complexities inbuilt into it. None of these devices were primarily built with cybersecurity in the mind. They were primarily built for working in a fault tolerant environment with utmost safety, and putting into priority the availability concern. So these physical systems, these cyber physical systems, which are actually controlling the process and down the line is controlling the entire environment, were not built with cybersecurity in mind. And that is why I kept the particular heading of this slide as security by secure by design. I will slowly go into the detail of what it is. Also, the networks that are involved into building up of these cyber physical systems are primarily time critical. There might be a lot of segregations within these networks, and there might not be relevant uses of firewalls or IDS or IPS, and so to say, clear security level zones and segments, as has already been said by my learned presenters before this. the requirement of security level, and the requirement of fundamental requirements, FRs, and all those stuffs. So as an organization, how should we deal with it? See, if we go by the look and feel of the OT systems, particularly in a process environment, be it in a power or energy or whatever sector, we first have to understand whether the sector, the organization, and the ultimate goal of the organization we are dealing with has something to do with the criticality. And we call it as, in India, we call it as critical information infrastructure. How we deal with it. So we all have seen what COVID has done. In COVID times, hardly there were any controllers left in the control room. Yet the operation should run. We cannot go dry with power, because if power is not there, water supply will not be there, banking sector will not be there, and whatnot. Hospitals will not be there, health system will go down, etc. So first thing on a real case study is understanding the criticality of your business process. Once we get a hold of the business process criticality, then every business process cannot be of utmost priority. Then we prioritize the business processes which are extremely critical, and without which the business continuity plan gets hampered. So if we have a business continuity plan at hand, and we are able to understand, citing the different components like the finance, the reputation, the health, the safety, and the environment, primarily these 5 aspects, and we are able to understand, okay, this business process is really critical. In that business process itself, we will find that all the subcomponents or all the cyber physical systems or all the ICTs involved in that business process might not be that equally critical. There might be few of those devices which are critical. Let's term them as the crown jewel of this business process, the critical information infrastructure. And now we go deep dive and understand what outage of these particular crown jewels within that critical information infrastructure will do, and how much outage we can afford. What is the downtime that is affordable to us? Practice, repractice, rescale. I will come in the later slides how to do that, and then come up with the minimum business impact analysis time. Obviously, parallelly, we also have to understand how we should have a good incident response plan. In case of a disaster, how to really act in the disaster, and a cyber crisis management plan. But that is not, these 3 components are not to deal so much with the 62443, but yes, definitely the business continuity plan. For doing the business continuity plan, we should have a thorough and detailed understanding of the 62443 standard. While I was listening to the other speakers, I found that there were some chats regarding the third-party governance. Now, this is very important. As an organization X, I might be trying for SL4, but what? One of my raw materials is coming from SL0. So, is my SL really maintained? What if I take a product, a subcomponent ICT, from an organization who doesn't really care about cybersecurity? And that is where, in India, at present, we are talking about trusted vendors, the trusted makes, and creating a portal out of it, and then using that portal for tendering purposes. That will give us a basic level of biasing in the safety aspect, in the security aspect, as far as the security of the components that are being used for the final architecture is concerned. So that is the first step towards security by design. The second step is obviously building difficult contractual clauses. And in these contractual clauses, we can have SOPs, we can have SLAs, through which we can bind the third parties, so that time and again they are forced to perform security audit, they are forced to have an awareness on cybersecurity, patch their vulnerabilities, and be in line with our system. Well, in that case, some people might say that small organizations might not have the financial or the technical capacity to do that. In that case comes the content thinking, as I already mentioned in the previous slide about business continuity plan. Should you really continue using those raw materials, those ICTs, or those cyber physical systems which are not meeting my requirement of security? Because if I am going to have a security level 3 or security level 4, I have very little window through which I can accept those third-party systems which are not secured. Like Naveen sir was telling about how we transfer from SL1 to SL4 and vice versa. What kind of protections we can put? What are the functional requirements that we should abide, and how to frame those things? What are the tentative countermeasures? In some cases, it can be a joint process where we can help our third-party supply chain people to be even more matured in their cybersecurity maturity model. In the last part of my slides, I will come with the concept of cyber security maturity model. So it is C2M2 in short, cyber security maturity model. So before that, thus if we go by the standards and if we maintain the different aspects of the standard, be it 1-1, be it 2-4, be it 3-1, 3-3, 3-2, and to a certain extent 4-2 or 4-1, we will see that there are certain BRs, I mean basic requirements and requirement enhancements, which talk about that the asset owner should be in a position to know each and every component which the system integrator, there is also a term called system integrator and service provider. The system integrator or the service provider is providing. So if we go by the exact definition, which can be relevantly found in 2-4 and 3-3 and 3-1, we will see that the now talked about concept of software BOM is already inbuilt into the standard. It might not be so categorically inbuilt, but yes, that requirement is already there in the standard, and we have to follow it rigorously. As Rahul sir was telling, the application might be 75% vulnerable, right? So let us try to plug all those vulnerabilities, and while doing so, the threat vectors, the threat attack surface, and all these things will subsequently decrease. Last but not the least, there is a lot of activities going on by NABCB, Quality Council of India, for creating a ISA secured lab in India for testing these components with respect to be it 4-1 or 4-2. The work is still in progress, and the ultimate idea or the aim should be to have our own set of labs, because we have so many tenders and so much waiting time for the testing of a particular equipment, that until and unless we don't have labs in each and every nooks and corners of India, the testing time will not come down, and all the security that we are talking about in the standard will not be implemented. So if we are to implement, we have to write in our contractual clauses that I want component which is 4-1 or 4-2 certified. I want it, if not certified, to be tested in a lab in India, so that it get tested and certified for 4-1 or 4-2, and then accept it. This rigidness, sternness, as far as the SOPs and SLAs with respect to third-party governance is considered, is to be put into fact, so that the security is not only by design, but the security is by birth and by genesis of that architecture that we are trying to build into it. And once that architecture is done, then definitely we have to go for a factory acceptance test with respect to security, cyber security, or if not factory acceptance test is possible, then we have to go for a site acceptance test in that case. Now going for the risk.
Sorry
Yeah.
to bother you, but we are lacking on the time. So if you can wrap up
How much
in
time do I have?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. So I thought that I had 25 minutes as per the agenda. Okay. Sorry. I will cut it down. Yeah. So the next point of thing is that understanding my organization's risk appetite. It is very, very important topic. And while doing so, not only understanding the threats, the vulnerabilities, and the impact it is causing, or whatever the likelihood of mixture of threat and vulnerability would be. But another very important factor is understanding my assets thoroughly. In the present use case, I can guarantee that we are not aware of our assets, whatever is underlining in our industries or in our organizations. And that is the basic root cause of any kind of threat vector or vulnerability arising out of those assets. Once we are able to understand the asset inventory, we can definitely have a good risk management, assessing the risk, and then mitigating the risk through countermeasures. But while doing so, we have to be also techno-economical in our thinking. And by that, I mean just not blindly taking the commercial off-the-shelf solutions from our system integrators or service providers or the OEMs. Let us tweak those solutions to the ultimate goal, mission, and vision of the organization as far as the business process, the criticality of the business process is considered, and change the solution as per our suitability. That way, organization X might be having COTS 1, organization Y also might be having COTS 1, but for the hacker, it will be two different attack scenarios because both the COTS, although they are of the same OEM, might be implemented differently in each and every organization. And that is how we have to aptly choose our countermeasures so that we don't put so much cost into our security countermeasures and at the same point of time bring down the cost of security breaches significantly. And this is a live process. And I think it is already covered in the previous presentations that what is CSMS, Cybersecurity Management System. It is well described in the standard, how to go about with it. So for the sake of the time, I will just skip this part. It is from the standard itself. You can refer to the standard for this particular slide. Yeah, and the regulatory compliances. So lot of midnight oil was burned to put 62443 as a mandatory regulatory compliance. It is now a mandatory regulatory compliance for Ministry of Power. And along with that, if we can do it in a judicious way, the implementation of 62443 and its certain standards, particularly 2-4, 2-1, 1-1, and 3-3, while using 4-1 or 4-2 components, I think the security level by themselves will increase from 1 to 2 and in some cases to 3. Until and unless we are running a nuclear power plant where absolute requirement of 3 and above is required. And obviously, increase the testing and the procurement stringency, make it a must. And another very important thing here also I would like to mention, and this is again related to the topic of today, is that each and every organization should have a ring-fenced CISO who is working only for that purpose. And shortly, the qualifying requirements for CISO is going to come up as a technical criteria in one of the documents. It is a 3-part document by QCI and NCIPC jointly. So that document is shortly going to come up, and this will be valid for India. The audit requirements are also very stringent now, and it should be further, I think it should be further toned up to have a good secured architecture present in all the organizations. I was given 5 minutes, right? So yeah, so I have 1 minute. Yeah, so each and organization should have categorical mentions about the requirements of the standards, be it the BR, be it the REs, or be it the FRs, and the policy should be a live document with utmost priority to regulatory norms, law of the land, and divided into different parts of strategic, tactical, and real-time use case scenarios of those policies. And maybe in such cases, we should go for a baseline with some organizations who are very, very matured as far as implementation of 62443 is considered, because nowadays there is a sea change and 62443 certifications are possible for organizations. It is coming up slow but steady, and it is very quickly it is going to come up in the market where any organization can also have a certain 62443 certification done for a certain business process. Obviously, while doing so, understanding my electronic security perimeter, again a part of the standard, understanding my access points, how I am doing the remote access. I will leave the rest of the part now. And another important use case is we always think that production environment is very critical, and stopping the production environment will definitely hit my P&L. But in the present scenario, my this is again my particular point of view, nothing to do with my organization, is that definitely we should go for an upgradation with the latest cyber physical systems, because nowadays these systems are built with cybersecurity in mind, and that is where the concept of security by design comes. And in addition to that, use security by obscurity. The defense in depth approach use all kind of potential weapons that are at hand, be it malware protection, whitelisting, antivirus, and obviously asset management, vulnerability assessment, patch management. People talk about penetration testing, but in real life OT scenario, penetration testing is not at all advisable, and it can in a jiffy it can create havoc into our operational technology. Practice more and more of backup that we have at hand, recovering from those backups, because that will bring down the business impact time. The more we practice with the backups that are already available, recovery processes, it will bring down my business impact time. And obviously continuous cybersecurity lifecycle and system development life cycles. Again, these were already talked about by my previous presenters. But while doing so, one thing which is very important is trying to achieve a KPI or a measurement index through which I can really understand whether as an organization I am maturing or not while using this standard 62443. And I think the best way that it can be done, CISA has a very good document on it in the form of C2M2 Cybersecurity Capability Maturity Model, where going one step ahead, as SANS University has already proposed, we can map each and every component with the MITRE TTPs and really understand, as per 62443, whether we have a certain tool at hand, we have implemented the tool correctly, and whether we are getting the desired result. And that will give us a clear-cut matrix of understanding if at all we are able to enhance our maturity over a period of time. People always have been the weakest link, and 62443 is a very difficult standard to understand. So more and more awareness is required with respect to 62443. There are total 14 sets of documents into it, which out of which 10 are standards and 4 are for the TR documents. And there is a very complex interlinking between the different subparts of the standard. So understanding the standard while implementing it is a difficult task, and that is where we require to reskill, upskill, and lot of training and certifications are to be done. And again, QCI and NCIPC are again preparing a technical criteria through which we can go for this kind of certifications. I think I should stop there. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Kundu. I think it was an excellent presentation, and thank you for giving so much insights on the regulatory requirements which are applicable, and bringing the the industrial perspective, actually informing us on what's going on in the India and how we can work. How tech sector can contribute, looking into what's going on in the accreditation system. So thank you all the participants. We have quick 2 questions on the chat box. But before I start with the questions, I have one small question for Mr. Kundu. Is NCIIPC requirement of QCI going to be mandatory, or is it going to be voluntary?
Let us see how it turns out. We are still developing the document, but I presume it might be mandatory. It is a 3-part document with 1 vertical and 2 horizontal.
Yes.
And
The council is part of this TIC Council is part of this committee which is drafting. So we have been sending our comments, but we
It's
thought it's
almost
going.
on the it's almost on the verge of completion with lot of weightage for real-time case studies, work ethics, and all those stuff. So I think it will be a good document. These 3 documents.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just quickly read out the questions and I'll open the floor to the others before I hand it over for a wrap up to Mr. Ramesh. The first question is, how do you see third-party smaller suppliers aligning to this new security requirement and aligning to IEC 62443 requirements? And I'll read the second one also, and I'll open the floor, whosoever wants to answer. In the long term, do you see IEC 62443 becoming a certifiable standard based on modules that organization can pick, or something like inclusion of OT specific controls and ISO 27001 is something that the 62443 standards committee might suggest? So the floor is open to the expert speakers.
I can take the
you-
first one. Yeah. Yeah. So, like third party small supplier. So I think a lot of content already covered in during presentation, particularly Mr. Somnath covered that as an end user or asset owner, they are creating a portal of trusted supplier. Yeah. So first and foremost means end user see that's a risk. So there is a like a common statement, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. Yeah. So any one part of the supply chain need to ensure that if they have a product or they are providing services which includes any security feature or cyber security related controls, they need to focus on that. Yeah. Now the question is there mandatory requirements? So regulations are coming in place in USA Executive Order 14025. It actually mandates a supply chain requirement, compliance for the supply chain for cybersecurity. And based on that, the outcome is there is a need to publish the software bill of material. So even though if you are a small supplier, if you have you are supplying a connected product which has a software means it might have vulnerability, so you need to publish bill of material. Yeah, software bill of material. So I'm just giving a small example. So how do you do that? Therefore this standard IEC 62443 is a right place, like which addresses the connected products in industrial environment. Now question is, are they really aligning? So it's all about business continuity. As Mr. Somnath said, uh, it's not only about the business continuity of the assets owner, it's about you, if you are a supplier, if you want to be in business, yes, regulations are coming in place, which are mandating this supply chain should comply with the latest or best practices or standard relevant to their products. So they have to do. Now, the small, mid-size, large size, it's not applicable. If you are part of supply chain, you have to do. And how to do it? You have to take training, create awareness about the standard, understand how you can implement for your product or services. And many of the small suppliers started doing it because of these regulatory requirement. And secondly, these are like pushed down from the assets owner. They are including this requirement in their tender documents. And we have, like in the market, we are seeing a lot of push where small suppliers are doing their efforts for compliance to 62443. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may add just 30 seconds onto it,
Yeah,
is that
please.
MOP already have a guideline, and shortly it is going to come up as a regulation where not only 62443 is mandated, but supply chain security is also mandated. And while doing so, you have to use 62443. There is no other options left. Add on to that, MOP also has a office order dated 272021, I presume, with lot of addendums into it, where we are talking about how to go about with the supply chain. Even so, if it is included with prior reference countries, neighbors, how to do the supply chain, and we have categorically 2 clear-cut guidelines on this aspect as far as MOP is concerned, Ministry of Power.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone would like to
Just,
address the
yeah,
second part?
just a small thing, Kuduji. I was really intrigued by your comment on the fact that there is a need for bringing up certain testing laboratories in India. So, are there any such laboratories available in India for the small suppliers? This is my question. What is the kind of stake there with respect to the small suppliers? Are they able
They
to
are at present,
get that?
no, they are at present not available, and work is going on aggressively, as you are already know, Ashish ji. NABCV is working aggressively with ISA Secure. Maybe we will come up with something shortly.
So there is a huge opportunity for the tech in the sector to be the get the recognition as early as possible. So it's time that we start working on this line. Thank you very much. If in case anybody wants to add last minute comment, otherwise I'm handing it over to Mr. John for his last remarks before we wrap up. In case there are no more pressing questions, I cannot see anything in the chat box. So over to you, Mr. John.
Thank you, Seema. I think first and foremost, this kind of webinar is enlightened a lot of people, especially the participants who are unaware of certain things. And I want to thank personally, right from Ashish and Rahul, Naveen, and Somnath, predominantly covering most of the areas. Ashish trying to explain about the ISA model, the benefits of it from an individual point of it or from an employer perspective, and how this could actively involve in today's current generation. Having education is very critical and important in order to drive. If you wanted to be in that scale, you got to be qualified and certified from an individual standpoint. It is a great forum. I encourage many people to be part of this ISA, be an active member. I think it is very critical to be part of it and then learn and encourage other colleagues, friends who are in the similar business. Because today, even though we have rich in resource and rich in technical expertise, but if you look at it, our community from a 62443 or an OT community is very small compared to what we have in the population. So I think I want to personally thank Ashish. I think it's very critical for country in India where we enrich and people to be part of this larger forum. And obviously, Rahul and Naveen enhanced, very clearly articulated how this benefits on Dash 1 and Dash 2. Thank you so much. I think now at least some of the audience are very clear in knowing how the development life cycle is critical, and knowing how this 8 practices going to bring in important ingredients in identifying the security parameters along with the maturity level to build their organization maturity process. I think this is the best thing they've done it in bringing CMMI concepts into this and a great alignment of maturity in 62443, which is a well-proven product in the past. And thank you for covering, and Naveen as well on Dash 2, which is very critical. And that example of yours was very interesting in terms of telling people how the risk could be changed. I think appreciate that. And Somnath, I think this is fantastic. You've been bringing in from direct live example. What else we can top it up in a webinar like this, having such an interesting interlude with a live example, scenario. And I'm sure being a government organization, it isn't that easy to comply 62443 or implement, even though you're putting up a nice smile right now, but I could understand the hard fact challenging aspect to get into such maturity. I really appreciate that. I think it is a great exercises. Participants, this is very critical. Why we have combined together, why we have come together as a tech council association is to see how we could bring in value into your individual life or into your organization in the industry where you're working in, where tech council has been constantly and continuously been part of several initiatives to enrich and provide sufficient experience where you could drive this in internally. I think the bottom line here, even though there are certain voluntary assessment, and there are very few organizations like NTPC who have been volunteering, but it's very sooner or later, the short time where we will be able to get into the mandate element. Sometimes in India, unless you put this mandate caveat, people won't really look into it, and it's not very far away. I think even though we claim and we are in the global market, very self-sustainable market in India, it is essential important that we go through the cybersecurity compliances so that our maturity is one level above compared to the other countries. I think with that, and we are going to continue several programs like this. We're not going to stop with this, and we're going to bring in a lot of industry experts to all your participants' knowledge in the coming days, future. There will be several interactions. Please, we will look forward to have you a part of it in all our seminars, webinars. And thank you so much for attending instead of your busy schedule. I could see quite a number of people have registered, and I'm sure that Seema will agree if required. We can even share this decks slides to people and who could enrich from this. Thank you so much. Appreciate all the speakers and Seema organizing this, and especially you have been running pillar to post to ensure that all of us are in the same date, same place, and you have done a great job. We look forward to support. I think it's a great event, a great seminar. Thank you so much, one and all.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. John. And above all, thank you, Julia, for your support.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot about it, Julia. I think, she's been the, ensuring everyone are connected, and I was ejected out a couple of times. And then, so
Yes.
thank you, Julia. My apologies.
Really great presentations from all the speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Yeah.